Shalom, friends. Um, I just wanted to read the editor's preface and maybe the introduction, prologue, and prologue 2. I think it's important to kind of see where these guys are coming from when when editing this work. It's very interesting because, you know, the Most High tells us there's nothing new under the sun. And that is usually referenced to a lot of uh, the way nature and his earth, his creation, how it operates. It has a Everything has a law that it's following. Everything has a purpose. But one thing that it rarely refers to, but I believe in that reference, it is actually referring to the behavior of people, and which are also his creation, but how they never change as well. Only very few that belong to him. Um, and even the ones that seek to go onto the path, some of them still fall astray, and some, it's all. But the point is nothing's different. And so to think that this far back in time that these people that would consider themselves um, the at the top of the hierarchy of intellect and information and knowledge and wisdom in their systems. It's so interesting to see the way they speak about each other, because I feel like this is something that happens even today, especially with a new resurgence of so many people who they don't believe in God or gods or any sort of spiritual aspect to this world, and yet they spend so much of their time debating and trying to convince people that there is no God. And you know for them to not believe in something, it says so much about the amount of time and energy and effort they spend on trying to evangelize or voice and continuously push their position on other people. It's very interesting. So let's see if we can read the emotion. And remember this, I forget when this was um, done. Uh, I know the original work was closer to 600 AD or something like that, but this, I'm not actually 100% sure. Let's see. Are there any? The Council of the Holyrood Society, Sir Clements, London printed, London. Whatever those DCC 700 MDC, I don't know. Okay, so as per usual, I am doing too much talking. Let's go ahead and read the editor's preface and see how they feel about this. Editor's preface. The Christian topography of Cosmas and Docopletus is one of the prodigies of literature. The boldness and perverse ingenuity with which its author, from a long array of irrelevant scripture texts, seeks to construct an impossible theory of the universe can scarcely fail to astonish everyone who reads it. Now, is that not extremely insulting? I believe so. And I think that that's the same way that we treat each other today. A lot of people, I find it amazing how even this far back when they first started trying to inject the heliocentric model into society in the Greco-Roman time, you know, even at that time, there were still people like Cosmas doing activism, and there was, and so, and the reason why they have to publish this book, and they did publish it, and they just put their own edits and everything in there, because when you get the fully published one, the new recent one from Cambridge Press, um, there's way more editors' edits and notes inside to attempt to claim that the Earth is sphere. So they try so hard, but they can't deny that this man did do the traveling and did log everything, and it is in historical record. They can't deny that part. And so since they can't deny it, it's better to face it, but they have to inject their their ideologies, their principles, and obviously here also their feelings. Okay? So, the Most High tells us that we're supposed to flee from vain philosophies, all right? And when you take a look at how convoluted a lot of the different lifestyle systems in which we acquiesce to in this earth, it's all controlled by Satan and his system. So it's like microdosing death. You see, the Most High deals in life, and the currency is obedience. And Satan deals in death, and the currency is do whatever you want. Death is free as well. Okay, let's see how these guys feel. It made its appearance at that period in the world's history when Christendom, fast losing the light of Greek learning and culture, was soon to be shrouded in the long night of medieval ignorance and barbarism. You see, it, it, it's so interesting how when we're reading in the past and history and the scriptures, we see that with time, people only progress. They only create more. Now, do they seem to get more evil? Yes, all the time. With time, ever since the seed was planted in Adam from the beginning, or of a grain, second Esdras, I think it's in chapter 4 or 5, but it talks about how in the beginning a seed was planted of a grain of evil seed was planted in Adam's heart from the beginning. So, and how much more will it fill on the threshing floor by the time it's all done? But the point is, it came from one little bit of evil, creates all of this evil now, and we see that with time. And this is how they also view it, is they tell people that actually that doesn't make sense. My mind jumps around a lot, people. Please forgive me. When Christendom, fast losing the light of Greek learning and culture, was soon to be shrouded in the long night of medieval ignorance and barbarism, the work reflects with singular distinctness this prominent characteristic of the age which produced it. For while Cosmas, on one hand, held the principles of the Christian faith combined with others pervading the theology then current which led to the darkening of all true knowledge, he had, on the other hand, a somewhat considerable, if annexed, acquaintance with the philosophical and scientific speculations of the Greeks. He may thus not inaptly be compared to a two-headed Janus, with one face turned to the light of departing day and the other to the shadows of the coming night. Oh, wow. In our introduction will be found a statement showing the sources whence the text of this unique work has been derived, a biography of its author. Then follows next a synopsis of his cosmological views, and finally citations of the opinions which have been passed upon his system of the world and the contents of his work generally. The translation here presented is literal. As far as the exigencies of idiom would permit. Also, guys, if you're new here, I am not the strongest reader. I am not the most literate reader. I am just a regular person who has spent most of his life being a loser and suddenly found the Most High and feel like I don't feel like I'm eating or nourished unless I'm seeking truth. And that's just it. I fail every single day, and you're definitely going to see me fail at reading a lot. Okay, so this is why I have it on the screen so you can read it yourself if you want to. Have been passed upon his system of the world and the contents of his work generally. The translation here presented is literal, as far as the exigencies of idiom would permit. It is the first that has been made of the whole work into English, or, indeed, into any other language except Latin or Norwegian. In its preparation we have lacked the advantage generally enjoyed by translators of classical texts, that of having at hand for reference a variety of translations and commentaries to throw light on passages that are dark, dubious, or disputed, or otherwise perplexed. We have had indeed the assistance of Mont I don't know that word, Latin version, but no commentary whatever to give us light where we found Cosmas dark. That good and learned father is generally accurate, but, like the good Homer, he sometimes nods, and we give at the foot of the page a list of notes which refer to passages whereof his interpretations differ from our own. Another list of notes follows, in which suggestions are offered for the correction of the Greek text. Cosmas tells us in the outset of his work that he has inserted notes for the clearer exposition of the text. These notes he seems to have placed not in the margin, but in the body of the work, after the text to which they refer. In our translation, they appear in a similar position, but printed in a type somewhat smaller than that of the text. So if you've been enduring or watching or reading these with the volume off and then just reading it yourself and then just fast forwarding through it on the other chapters, you'll see that when he's writing, they do publish it like that. And I've put the link for this archived document on the Google Drive, I believe, ia802705.us.archive.org. And if you want to read it yourself or you want the PDF to read it yourself, you can. And then this doesn't have the appendix, but I've uploaded the appendix on my page so you can take screenshots, and I've zoomed in as much as I can so you guys can reuse that or just see references of what it is. Our rendering of the word requires a word of explanation. In the days of Cosmos, it was used not so much to designate. Oops, let me mute that. Sorry, everybody. A reading of the word, whatever that word is, requires a word of explanation. Wow. In the days of Cosmas, it was used not so much to designate persons of Hellenic descent as persons who clung to the old superstitions of Greece and Rome and rejected Christianity. Montfaucon rendering is Gracie, Gracie, but we have considered pagans as preferable. This class of persons Cosmas sometimes calls also those without the pale of the church, an expression which we render mostly by pagans. Cosmas had some skill in drawing, and seems to have taken as much delight in covering his MSS with illustrative sketches. I think that stands for manuscripts. I'm not sure. Illustrative sketches as was taken according to his showing by the Israelites of old in covering the rocks of Mount Sinai, which inscriptions, when once they had been taught by Moses the art of writing, Montfaucon had made a selection from these sketches, relegated them in mass to the end of his work. His copies of them, which are not always quite exact, have been produced for the present work by photographic process, in a way which leaves nothing to be desired, and will be found with explanatory notes in the appendix. The passages of scripture, and it's so interesting that they don't have the appendix on this. It's all jacked up. I don't know why. They were able to easily photocopy all these other pages. I don't know what happened on the appendix. Got some really interesting illustrations in there, though, and I think you guys should all check that out because they've got a multi-layered firmament over a flat stationary Earth. He has his comparisons to um, uh, the table in the temple, and how it's supposed to be set to be eaten at, or at the tabernacle. You know, the places, and it's supposed to replicate like the way the Earth is actually created. It's like a everything is foreshadowed in everything else, and there's symbolic meaning in everything that he has us do. You know, it's very interesting. His, you know, and it's what's also interesting is the way he sees the movement of the luminary. Anyways, let's keep going. The passages of scripture to which Cosmas refers are very numerous, and the words are cited at length both in the Greek text and in the Latin version. We have, however, given only the references in cases where this could be done without inconvenience to the reader. In conclusion, we have to express our obligations to Mr. J. Coles, map curator of the Royal Geographical Society, and to Dr. James Berg, Berg, Burgess of Edinburgh for their kindness in writing for us those mathematical notes to Book 6, in which they show how irregular uh, egregiously Cosmas erred in his calculations of the size of the sun. While to Mr. C. Robertson of Edinburgh, late of the Indian Civil Service, we stand greatly indebted for valuable suggestions and criticisms made while he had the goodness to hear us read over our translation to him. Mr. Foster, the secretary of the society, must permit us further to say how much the work has profited by his careful correction of the final proofs and the suggestions which he was kind enough on occasion to offer. Okay, and I'll stop this recording and then do the introduction.